Exodus chapter 1. Here are the names of Israel's children who went to Egypt with Jacob. Each one went with his family. Jacob's sons were Reuben, Simon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun. Benjamin, Dan, Zebedee, Gad, and Asher. The total number of Jacob's children and grandchildren was 70. Joseph was already in Egypt. Joseph and all his brothers died. So did all their children, and the people of Israel had many children. And the number of them greatly increased, and there were so many of them that they filled the land. And then a new king came to power in Egypt, and Joseph didn't mean anything to him. Look, he said to his people, the Israelites are far too many for us. Come, we must deal with them carefully. If we don't, there will be even more of them. Then if war breaks out, they'll join our enemies in their fight against us and leave the country. So the Egyptians put slave drivers over the people of Israel, and the slave drivers treated them badly and made them work hard. The Israelites built the cities of Pelium and Ramses, so Pharaoh could store things there. But the worse the slave drivers treated the Israelites, the more Israelites there were. But the worse the slave drivers treated the Israelites, the more Israelites there were. So the Egyptians became afraid of them, and they made them work hard, and they didn't show them any pity. The people suffered because of their hard labor. The slave drivers forced them to work with bricks and mud, and they made them do all kinds of work in the fields, and the Egyptians didn't show them any pity at all. They made them work very hard, and there were 2 Hebrew women named Shiphrah and Puah, I don't know. They helped other women having babies. The king of Egypt spoke to them, and he said, you are the ones who helped the other Hebrew women. Watch them when they get into a sitting position to have their babies. Kill the boys and let the girls live. But Shiphrah and Puah had respect for God. They didn't do what the king of Egypt had told them to do. They let the boys live, and then the king of Egypt sent for the woman. He asked them, why have you done this? Why have you let the boys live? The woman answered Pharaoh, Hebrew women are not like the women of Egypt. They are strong. They have their babies before we get there. So God was kind to Shiphrah and Puah, and the number of Israelites became even greater. Shiphrah and Puah had respect for God, so he gave them families of their own. And then Pharaoh gave an order to all his people. He said, you must throw every Hebrew baby boy into the Nile River, but let every Hebrew baby girl live. Exdous chapter 1. Exodus chapter 1 as 1 as 8. The first words of the book now, these are names. Hebrew. Shema constitute the title of Exodus in the Jewish tradition, how a personal God is, not numbers or notches in a computer card, but names Jesus said of the Good Shepherd. He calls his own sheep by his name and leads them out. John chapter 10 verse 3. This is very fitting here. The Israelites came down to Egypt as shepherds, but now they are slaves. But God, the Good Shepherd, has plans to lead them out. And for expectations of the 70 persons who were descendants of Jacob. See note on Genesis chapter 46, 8, verse 27. The 70 people had multiplied to a female, including 603,550. I don't know that one. Men of war by the time the Jewish peace between the end of Genesis and the event of Exodus. The meaning of verse 8 is that a new king arose who did not look with approval on the descendants of Joseph. Joseph himself was already dead, of course. Exodus 1 verse 9 verse 10. The Israelites had so increased in number and power that when Pharaoh thought they could pose a threat in time of war, so he decided to make slaves of the people and to destroy every male child and thus eventually wipe out the Hebrew race. 3 evil rulers in scripture ordered the slaughter of innocent children. Pharaoh, Adaiah, Kings, 2 Kings chapter 11, and Herod, Matthew chapter 2. And these satanically aspired or to reach were aimed at the extinction of the Messianic line. Satan had never forgotten God's promise in Genesis chapter 3 verse 15. Exodus chapter 1 verse 11 14. Pharaoh used the enslaved Jews to build the supply cities of Hidim and Ramses, but instead of being wiped out by his repression, they multiplied all the more. Pharaoh meant that hard bondage for evil, but God meant it for good. It helped prepare the Jews for their arduous journey from Egypt to the promised land. Exodus chapter 1, 15 verse 19. When Shepha and Porah, who were probably the Hebrew midwives, saw the Jewish mothers bearing children on their birth stools, they did not kill the male children as Pharaoh had ordered. They excused their inaction by explaining that the Hebrew children were usually born too quickly, and that was before the midwives could get to the mothers, and this assertion probably had some truth to it. The Daily Notes of Scripture unit comment on the midwives. The reward given to the midwives in terms of a flourishing family life, verse 21, was granted them not for their falsehood, but for their humanity. This is not to say that the end justified the means, still less that there is no absolute standards of morality, but in a world as charged with sin and its effects as ours has become, it may be that obedience to greater duties is possible only at the cost of obedience to lesser ones. In this, as in all else, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Followed by the Hebrew midwives, Pharaoh, new commanding his own people to enforce the decree. So, Exodus chapter 2. Exodus chapter 2. Exodus chapter 2 says Moses was born. A man and a woman from the tribe of Levi got married, and she became pregnant and had a son by her husband. And she saw that her baby was a fine child, and she hid him for 3 months. After that, she couldn't hide him any more longer. So she got a basket made out of stumps of tall grass, and she coated the basket with tar, and she placed the baby in the basket, and then she put it in the tall grass that grew along the bank of the Nile River. The child's sister wasn't very far away, and she wanted to see what would happen to him. Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile River to take a bath, and her attendants were walking along the river bank, and she saw the basket in the tall grass, so she sent her female slave to get it. And when she opened it, Pharaoh's daughter saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. "This is one of the Hebrew babies," she said. Then his sister spoke to Pharaoh's daughter, and she asked, "Do you want me to go and get one of the Hebrew women? She could breastfeed the baby for you." "Yes, go," and she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother, and Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this baby and feed him for me, and I'll pay you. So the woman took the baby and fed him, and when the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son, and she named him Moses. She said, "I pulled him out of the water." Exodus chapter 2:11. And Moses escaped to Midian, and Moses grew up one day, and he went out to where his own people were, and he watched them while they were hard at work. He saw an Egyptian hitting a Hebrew man, and the man was one of Moses' own people. Moses looked around and didn't see anyone, so he killed the Egyptian, and then he hid his body in the sand. The next day Moses went out again, and he saw two Hebrew men fighting. He asked the one who had started the fight a question. He said, "Why are you hitting another Hebrew man?" The man said, "Who made you ruler and judge over us? Are you thinking about killing me as you killed the Egyptian?" Then Moses became afraid, and he thought, "People must have heard about what I did." When Pharaoh heard about what had happened, he tried to kill Moses. But Moses escaped from Pharaoh and went to live in Midian. And there he sat down by a well, and a priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came to fill the stone tubs with water, and they wanted to give water to their father's flock. But some shepherds came along and chased the girls away. But Moses got up and helped them, and then he gave water to their flock. The girls returned to their father, Reuel, and he asked them, "Why have you returned so early today?" They answered, "An Egyptian saved us from the shepherds. He even got water for us and gave it to the flock." "Where is he?" Reuel asked his daughters. "Why did you leave him? Invite him to have something to eat." Moses agreed to stay with the man, and the man gave his daughter Zipporah to Moses to be his wife, and Zipporah had a son by him. Moses named him Gershom, and that's because Moses said, "I am an outsider in a strange land." After a long time, the king of Egypt died, and the people of Israel groaned because they were slaves, and they also cried out to God. Their cry for help went up to him, and God heard their groans, and he remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So God looked on the Israelites with concern for them. This is gonna make me read 3, 4. The birth, rescue, and training of Moses. Exodus chapter 2:1-2. The man of the house of Levi in verse 1 was Amram, and the daughter of Levi was Jodabin. Thus both of Moses' parents were of the priestly tribe of Levi. By faith, Moses' parents hid him for 3 months. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 23. And this must mean that they received some revelation that he was a child of destiny, because faith must be based on some revealed word of God. Exodus chapter 2, verse 3, verse 8. Jochebed's ark, like Noah's, is a picture of Christ. And Moses' sister was Miriam. Numbers chapter 26, verse 59. And this chapter is full of seeming coincidence. For example, why did Pharaoh's daughter happen to be right where the ark was flowing? Why did the baby happen to cry and thus draw out her compassion? And why was Moses' mother accepted by Pharaoh's daughter as his nurse? Exodus chapter 2, verse 9, verse 10. Christian parents should take the words of verse 9 as a sacred charge and an unfailing promise in Egyptian Moses. The Moses name given by Pharaoh's daughter probably means child or son. In Hebrew, the same name means drawn out of the water. The Macintosh remarks, with his usual insight, the devil was foiled by his own weapon, insomuch as Pharaoh, whom he was using to frustrate the purpose of God, is use of God to nourish and bring up Moses, who was to be his instrument in confounding the power of Satan. Exodus chapter 2, verse 11, verse 12. We know from Acts chapter 7, verse 23 that Moses was 40 years old when he visited his own people. His kill on the Egyptian was ill-advised. His zeal outran his decretion. God would one day use Moses to deliver his people from the Egyptians, but the time had not yet come. First, he must spend 40 years on the backside of the desert learning in the school of God. God has predicted that his people would be in the land of Egypt as slaves for 400 years. Genesis chapter 15, verse 13. So Moses' actions were 40 years premature. He needed more training in the solitude of the desert, and the people needed more training in the brickland. The Lord orders all things according to his infinite wisdom. He is not in a hurry, but neither will he leave his people in affliction one moment longer than necessary. Exodus chapter 2, verse 13, verse 15. When he went out the second day, Moses tried to break up a fight between two Hebrew men, but they rejected his leadership, as the Hebrews were later to reject one greater than Moses. When he found out they had killed the Egyptian, Moses panicked again, and when Pharaoh heard about it, the killing, he sought to kill Moses. So Moses fled to the land of Midian, and that is Arabia or the Sinai area. Exodus chapter 2, verse 15. At the well in Midian, Moses helped the 7 daughters of the priest of Midian against some surly shepherds and watered their flocks. And the priest of Midian is given two names, Jeriel and Reuel, which is the same as Raguel. Numbers chapter 10, verse 29. The Midianites were distant relatives of the Hebrews. Genesis chapter 25, verse 2. Jeriel's daughter, Zipporah, became Moses' wife, and a son, Gershom, meaning stranger, there was born to them. Genesis chapter 2, verse 23, verse 25. God was not obvious to the plight of his people when a new king ascended to the throne. God heard and remembered and looked up upon the children of Israel and acknowledged their condition. And his response was to bring his servant back to Egypt, chapter 3, to lead his people out of that land in the mightiest display of power since the creation of the world. So, Exodus chapter 3. Moses in the burning bush. Moses was taking care of the flock of his father-in-law Jeriel, and Jeriel was the priest of Midian, and Moses led the flock to the western side of the desert, and he came to Hebron. It was a mountain of God, and there the angel of the Lord appeared to him first inside a burning bush. Moses saw that the bush was on fire, but it didn't burn up. So Moses thought, I'll go over and see this strange sight. Why doesn't the bush burn up? The Lord saw that Moses had gone over to look, so God spoke to him from inside the bush. He called out, Moses, Moses. Here I am, Moses said. Do not come any closer, God said. Take off your sandals. The place you are standing on is holy ground. He continued, I am the God of your father. I am the God of Abraham. I am the God of Isaac, and I am the God of Jacob. When Moses heard that, he turned his face away, and he was afraid to look at God. The Lord said, I have seen how my people are suffering in Egypt. I have heard them cry out because of their slave drivers. I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to save them from the Egyptians, and I will bring them out of that land. I will bring them into a good land. It has a lot of room and is a land that has plenty of milk and honey. The Canaanites, Hittites, and Amorites, and Perizzites, and Hivites, and Jebusites live there. And now Israel's cry for help has reached me. I have seen how badly the Egyptians are treated them. So now go. I am sending you to Pharaoh. I want you to bring the Israelites out of Egypt, and they are my people. But Moses spoke to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh? He said, Who am I that I should bring the Israelites out of Egypt? God said, I will be with you. I will give you a sign. It will prove that I have sent you. And when you have brought the people out of Egypt, all of you will worship me on this mountain. Moses said to God, Suppose I go to the people of Israel, and suppose I say to them, The God of your fathers has sent me to you. And suppose they ask me, What is his name? Then what should I tell them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. Here's what you must say to the Israelites. Tell them, I am, has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, Say to the Israelites, The Lord is the God of your fathers. He has sent me to you. He is the God of Abraham. He is the God of Isaac. And he is the God of Jacob. My name will always be the Lord. Call me this name for all the time to come. Go gather the elders of Israel together and say to them, The Lord, the God of your father, appeared to me. He is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God said, I have watched over you. I have seen what the Egyptians have done to you. I have promised to bring you up out of Egypt, where you are suffering, and I will bring you into the land of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, and Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. It is a land that has plenty of milk and honey, and the elders of Israel will listen to you. Then you and the elders must go to the king of Egypt. You may say to him, The Lord has met with us, and he is the God of the Hebrews. Let us take a journey that lasts about 3 days. We want to go into the desert to offer sacrifices to the Lord our God. But I know that the king of Egypt will not let you let you and your people go. Only a mighty hand could make him do that. So I will reach out my hand, and I will strike the Egyptians with all the amazing things I will do. After that, their king will let you go. I will cause the Egyptians to treat you in a kind of way. Then when you leave, you will not go with your hand empty. Every woman should ask her neighbor and any woman living in her house for things made of silver and gold, and ask them for clothes too. Put them on your children. In that way you will take the wealth of Egyptian along with you. So the call of Moses chapter, Exodus 3, the revelation of Jehovah to Moses, Exodus chapter 3, 1-4. And tending the flock of Jericho, Moses learned valuable lessons about leading God's people. And when he went to Horeb, Mountain Sinai, the Lord appeared to him in a bush that burned with fire, but was not consumed. The bush suggests that the glory of God before which he was told to stand with unshod feet. It might also foreshadow Jehovah's dwelling in the midst of his people without their being consumed, and some have seen in it the testimony of Israel and tried in the fires of affliction, but not consumed. We should all be like the burning bush, burning for God, yet not consumed. Exodus chapter 3, verse 5. The Lord promised Moses that he would deliver his people from Egypt and bring them into a land of abundance, and that is Canaan, inhabited by 6 heathen nations. Listen in verse 8, the word holy occurs. Here, for the first time in the Bible, by removing his sandals, Moses acknowledged that the place was holy. Exodus chapter 3, verse 6, God assures Moses that he is the God of his forefathers, Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. Cole shows the importance of this revelation. Moses brings no new or unknown God to his people, but a full revelation of the one whom they have known, and not even Paul words to the Ephesians on the Arabicus are a fair parallel here. Acts chapter 17, verse 23. The only true parallel in the continued self-revelation made by God in later centuries, culminating in the coming of Christ, yet in its day, the Mosaic revelation, while a fulfillment of patriarch promises, was as new and shattering to Israel as the coming of the Messiah was later to prove to be. Exodus chapter 3, verse 7, 12. Moses protested God sending him to Pharaoh, citing his own intoxicacy, but the Lord assured Moses of his presence and promise that he would yet serve God on this mountain. Mount Sinai was a liberated people. J. O. Swan Center's remarks, his eventually of disqualifications cover lack of capability, a lack of message, a lack of authority, a lack of allowance, a lack of special adoption, a lack of previous success, and lack of previous acceptance. A more complete list of disabilities would be difficult to conjure up, but instead of pleasing God, his seeming humility and reluctance stirred his anger. The anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses in chapter verses 4 for 14. Is this going to go to 4:14? The fact that excuses Moses advances to show his incapability were the very reasons for God's selection of him for the task. Exodus chapter 3, verse 14, verse 14. Moses anticipated questions from the children of Israel when he turned to them as the Lord's spokesman, and he wanted to be able to tell them who sent him. It was at this point that God first revealed himself as Jehovah, the great I am. Jehovah, more priestly, Yahweh, comes from the Hebrew verb to be. Hayah, the sacred name, is known as the tetragram, 4 letters. English Jehovah comes from the Hebrew word Yahweh, with vowel markings supplied from Elohim, Indoni, and other names of God. No one knows for sure the true pronunciation of the YHWH because the ancient Hebrew spelling used two actual vowels in its alphabet. However, the pronunciation Yahweh is probably correct. The Jews consider Yahweh too sacred to utter, and the name proclaims God as self-existent, self-sufficient, eternal, and sovereign. The full near forward name, I am who I am, may mean I am because I am, or I will be that I will be. Exodus chapter 3, verse 15, verse 22, fortified by this revelation that God was really present and ready to come to his people. 8. Moses was told to announce to the people of Israel that they would soon be free. Also, he was to test Pharaoh by requesting the Israelites be allowed to travel 3 days' journey to sacrifice to the Lord. And this was not an attempt to deceive, but an immovable test of Pharaoh's willingness. It would also prevent the Egyptians from witnessing the slaying of animals that were sacred to them. God knew that Pharaoh wouldn't yield until compelled by divine power. The wonders of verse 20 are the plagues that God sent on Egypt. And by the time God was finished with them, the Egyptians would be glad to give the Jewish woman anything they asked. The wealth thus accumulated would only be just compensation for all the slave labor of the Jews under the taskmasters of Egypt. The Israelites did not borrow Jews in clothing, as in the King James Version. They asked for them. In the New King James Version, as I'm reading that one, the New King James Version. No deceit was involved, only the just payment of wages. So what is it saying? I have to read to all the way to 7. Four, 5, 6. Yeah. So it wants me to read the 7. And then I'll be done for today. Because a lot of pages. Exodus chapter 4. So already I read Exodus chapter 1. I read Exodus chapter 2. I read Exodus chapter 3. And now I read 207. And then I'll be finished for the day. So signs for Moses to do, Exodus chapter 4. Moses answered, "What if the elders of Israel won't believe me? What if they won't listen to me? Suppose they say, 'The Lord didn't appear to you.' Then what should I do?" The Lord said to him, "What do you have in your hand?" "A walking stick," he said. The Lord said, "Throw it on the ground." So Moses threw it on the ground. It turned into a snake, and he ran away from it. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Reach your hand out and take the snake by the tail." So he reached out and grabbed the snake. It turned back into a walking stick in his hand. And the Lord said, "When they see this sign, they will believe that I appeared to you. I am the Lord, the God of their fathers. I am the God of Abraham. I am the God of Isaac. And I am the God of Jacob." And then the Lord said, "Put your hand inside your coat." So Moses put his hand inside his coat. And when he took it out, the skin had become as white as snow, and his hand was covered with a skin disease. "And now put it back into your coat," the Lord said. So Moses put his hand back into his coat, and when he took it out, the skin was healthy again. His hand was like the rest of his skin. And then the Lord said, "Suppose they do not believe you or pay attention to the first sign, then maybe they will believe the second one. But suppose they do not believe either sign, and suppose they will not listen to you, then get some water from the Nile River and pour it on the dry ground. The water you take from the river will turn into blood on the ground." Moses spoke to the Lord. He said, "Lord, I've never been a good speaker, and I haven't gotten any better since you spoke to me. I don't speak very well at all." The Lord said to him, "Who makes human beings able to talk? Who makes them unable to hear or speak? Who makes them able to see? Who makes them blind? It is I, the Lord. Now go, I will help you speak, and I will teach you what to say." But Moses said, "Lord, please send someone else to do it." That's funny. Then the Lord became very angry with Moses. He said, "What about your brother Aaron the Levite? I know he can speak well. He is already on his way to meet you. He will be glad to see you. Speak to him and tell him what to say, and I will help both of you speak. I will teach you what to do. He will speak to the people for you, and he will be like your mouth, and you will be like God to him. But take this walking stick in your hand, and you will be able to do signs with it." Exodus chapter 4:18. Moses returned to Egypt, and then Moses went back to his father-in-law Jeriel, and he said to him, "Let me return to my own people in Egypt. I want to see if any of them are still alive." Jeriel said, "Go, I hope everything goes well with you." The Lord had said to Moses in Midian, "Go back to Egypt. All those who wanted to kill you are dead." So Moses got his wife and sons, and he put them on a donkey, and together they started back to Egypt, and he took the walking stick in his hand. It was the stick God would use in a powerful way. The Lord spoke to Moses. He said, "When you return to Egypt, do all the amazing things I have given you the power to do. Do them in the sight of Pharaoh, but I will make him stubborn. He will not let the people go. And then say to Pharaoh, 'The Lord says, Israel is like an oldest son to me. I told you, let my son go. Then you will be able to worship me, but you refuse to let him go, so I will kill your oldest son.'" On the way to Egypt, Moses stopped for the night, and there the Lord met him and was about to kill him. On the way to Egypt, Moses stopped for the night. There the Lord met him and was about to kill him. But Zipporah got a knife made out of flint, and she circumcised her son with it. And then she touched Moses' feet with the skin she had cut off. "Surely you are a husband who has forced me to spill my son's blood," she said. So the Lord didn't kill Moses. And when she said, "Husband, who has forced me to spill my son's blood?" she was talking about circumcision. The Lord said to Aaron, "Go into the desert to see Moses." So Aaron greeted Moses at the mountain of God and kissed him. Then Moses told Aaron on everything the Lord had sent him to say. And Moses also told him about all the signs the Lord had commanded him to do. Moses and Aaron gathered all the elders of Israel together, and Aaron told them everything the Lord had said to Moses, and he also performed the signs in the sight of the people. And they believed they heard that the Lord was concerned about them, and he had seen their suffering. So they bowed down and worshiped him. So it's a little article. Exodus 5:121. Read Exodus 5:121. Now answer these questions. Number 1, Moses did what God said did. Number 1 did what God Moses did what God said. Did something good happen right away? Number 2, did the people blame someone when they were told to work harder? Number 3, when Moses obeyed God, the slaves had more troubles. How did this make Moses feel? And sometimes things get worse before they get better. But the people finally were free, and Moses led them out of Egypt. Think about some sad things that had happened to you, and now think about some happy things. Keep obeying God. He has many wonderful plans for you. Exodus chapter 5, bricks without straw. So later on, Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh, and they said, "The Lord is the God of Israel. He says, 'Let my people go, and then they will be able to hold a feast to honor me in the desert.'" Pharaoh said, "Who is the Lord? Why should I obey him? Why should I let Israel go? I don't even know the Lord, and I won't let Israel go." Then Moses Aaron said, "The God of the Hebrews has met with us. Now let us take a journey that lasts about 3 days. We want to go into the desert to offer sacrifices to the Lord our God. If we don't, he might strike us with plagues, or he might let us be killed by swords." But the king of Egypt said, "Moses and Aaron, why are you taking the people away from their work? Get back to work." Pharaoh continued, "There are large numbers of your people in the land, but you are stopping them from working." In that same day, Pharaoh gave orders to the slave drivers and the overseers in charge of the people. He said, "Don't give the people any more straw to make bricks. Let them go and get their own straw. But require them to make the same number of bricks as before, and don't lower the number they have to make. They are lazy. That's why they are crying out, 'Let us go. We want to offer sacrifices to our God.' Make them work harder, and then they would be too busy to pay attention to lies." The slave drivers and the overseers left, and they said to the people, "Pharaoh says, 'I won't give you any more straw. Go and get your own straw anywhere you can find it, but you still have to make the same number of bricks.'" So the people scattered all over Egypt, and they went to gather any pieces of straw left in the fields. Pharaoh's slave drivers kept making the people work hard, and they said, "Finish the work you're required to do each day. Make the same number of bricks you made when you had straw." The slave drivers whipped the Israelites, overseers, and they had appointed. The slave drivers asked, "Why haven't you made the same number of bricks yesterday or today, just as before?" And then the Israelites overseers appeared to Pharaoh. They asked, "Why have you treated us like this? You didn't give us any straw, but you told us to make bricks. We are being whipped, but it's the fault of your own people." Pharaoh said, "You are lazy. That's why you keep saying, 'Let us go.' We want to offer sacrifices to the Lord. Now get to work. We won't give you any straw, but you still have to make the same numbers of bricks." The Israelites overseers realized they were in trouble, and they knew it when they were told, "Don't reduce the number of bricks you are required to make each day." When they left Pharaoh, they found Moses and Aaron waiting to meet them, and they said to Moses and Aaron, "We want the Lord to look at what you have done. We want him to judge you, for we are like a very bad smell to Pharaoh and his officials, and you have given them an excuse to kill us with their swords." So, number 6. Moses, the Lord promised to save the Israelites. Chapter 5, verse 22. Moses returned to talk to the Lord, and he said to them, "Why, Lord, why have you brought trouble on these people? Is this why you sent me? I went to Pharaoh to speak to him in your name. Ever since then, he has brought nothing but trouble on these people, and you haven't saved your people at all." So, read number 6 in audio Bible, because I don't have them pronounce the names. Bluetooth. Okay. Exdous. Genesis, Exodus. What other than NLT since they don't have the audio Bible?
Chapter 6. Promises of Deliverance. Then the Lord told Moses, "Now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh. When he feels the force of my strong hand, he will let the people go. In fact, he will force them to leave his land." And God said to Moses, "I am Yahweh, the Lord. I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as El Shaddai, God Almighty. But I did not reveal my name, Yahweh, to them. And I reaffirmed my covenant with them. Under its terms, I promised to give them the land of Canaan, where they were living as foreigners. You can be sure that I have heard the groans of the people of Israel, who are now slaves to the Egyptians, and I am well aware of my covenant with them. Therefore say to the people of Israel, I am the Lord. I will free you from your oppression and will rescue you from your slavery in Egypt. I will redeem you with a powerful arm and great acts of judgment. I will claim you as my own people, and I will be your God. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God, who has freed you from your oppression in Egypt. I will bring you into the land I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I will give it to you as your very own possession. I am the Lord." So Moses told the people of Israel what the Lord had said, but they refused to listen anymore. They had become too discouraged by the brutality of their slavery. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go back to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and tell him to let the people of Israel leave his country." "But Lord," Moses objected, "my own people won't listen to me anymore. How can I expect Pharaoh to listen? I'm such a clumsy speaker." But the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron and gave them orders for the Israelites and for Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. The Lord commanded Moses and Aaron to lead the people of Israel out of Egypt. The ancestors of Moses and Aaron. These are the ancestors of some of the clans of Israel. The sons of Reuben, Israel's oldest son, were Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. Their descendants became the clans of Reuben. The sons of Simeon were Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Zohar, and Shaul. Shaul's mother was a Canaanite woman. Their descendants became the clans of Simeon. These are the descendants of Levi, as listed in their family records. The sons of Levi were Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. Levi lived to be 137 years old. The descendants of Gershon included Libni and Shimei, each of whom became the ancestor of a clan. The descendants of Kohath included Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel. Kohath lived to be 133 years old. The descendants of Merari included Melai and Mushai. These are the clans of the Levites as listed in their family records. Amram married his father's sister Jochebed, and she gave birth to his sons Aaron and Moses. Amram lived to be 137 years old. The sons of Izhar were Korah, Nepheg, and Zikri. The sons of Uzziel were Mishael, Elzaphan, and Zithri. Aaron married Elisheba, the daughter of Amminadab and sister of Nashon, and she gave birth to his sons Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. The sons of Korah were Aser, Elkanah, and Abiasaph. Their descendants became the clans of Korah. Eleazar, son of Aaron, married one of the daughters of Putiel, and she gave birth to his son Phinehas. These are the ancestors of the Levite families listed according to their clans. The Aaron and Moses named in this list are the same ones to whom the Lord said, "Lead the people of Israel out of the land of Egypt like an army." It was Moses and Aaron who spoke to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, about leading the people of Israel out of Egypt. When the Lord spoke to Moses in the land of Egypt, he said to him, "I am the Lord. Tell Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, everything I am telling you." But Moses argued with the Lord, saying, "I can't do it. I'm such a clumsy speaker. Why should Pharaoh listen to me?" Chapter 7. Aaron's step.
Not 7 yet. Exodus chapter 7. Then the Lord said to Moses, "I have made you like God to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron will be like a prophet to you. You must say everything I command you to say. Then your brother Aaron must tell Pharaoh to let the people of Israel leave his country. But I will make Pharaoh stubborn. I will multiply the signs and amazing things I will do in Egypt. In spite of that, he will not listen to you. So I use my powerful hand against Egypt. When I judge them with mighty acts, I will bring my people Israel out like an army on the march. Then the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. I will reach out my powerful hand against them, and I will bring the people of Israel out of Egypt." Moses and Aaron did exactly as the Lord had commanded them, and Moses was 80 years old, and Aaron was 83 when they spoke to Pharaoh. Exodus chapter 7, verse 8. Aaron's walking stick becomes a snake. And then the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, and he said, "Pharaoh will say to you, 'Do a miracle.' And when he does speak to Aaron, tell him, 'Take your walking stick and throw it down in front of Pharaoh, and it will turn into a snake.'" So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh, and they did exactly as the Lord had commanded them. And Aaron threw the stick down in front of Pharaoh and his officials. It turned into a snake, and then Pharaoh sent for wise men and people who do evil magic. By doing their magic tricks, the Egyptian magicians did the same things Aaron had done. Just satanic. Aaron had done. Each one threw down his walking stick. Each stick turned into a snake, but Aaron's walking stick swallowed theirs up. As you know, God is powerful than over Satan. But Aaron's walking stick swallowed theirs up. In spite of that, Pharaoh became stubborn and he wouldn't listen to them, just as the Lord had said. So as a little article, what are God's mighty acts? Exodus chapter 7:4. The 10 terrible plagues God brought on Egypt are his mighty acts. They are also called miracle signs and wonders. Each plague was worse than another in Egypt's history, and each one came and went at Moses' command. Each one showed God's power to Pharaoh. Exodus chapter 7 verse 14, the plague of blood. Then the Lord said to Moses, Pharaoh is very stubborn. He refuses to let the people go. In the morning Pharaoh will go down to the Nile River. Go and meet him on the bank of the river. Take in your hand the walking stick and turn into a snake. Say to Pharaoh, the Lord, the God of your Hebrews, has sent me to you. He says, let my people go. Then they will be able to worship me in the desert. But up to now you have not listened. The Lord says, here is how you will know that I am the Lord. I will strike the water of the Nile River with the walking stick that is in my hand. The river will turn into blood, and the fish in the river will die. The river will stink, and the Egyptians will not be able to drink its water. The Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron, get your walking stick and reach your hand out over the waters of Egypt, and the stream canals, ponds, and all the lakes will turn into blood. There will be blood everywhere in Egypt. It will even be in wooden bucket and stone jars. Moses and Aaron did exactly as the Lord had commanded them. Aaron held out his staff in front of Pharaoh and his officials, and he struck the water of the Nile River, and all the water turned into blood. The fish in the Nile died, and the river smelled so bad, and the Egyptians couldn't drink its water, and there was blood everywhere in Egypt. But the Egyptian magicians did the same thing. I think they did it by the use of the Satan magic trick. So Pharaoh became stubborn, and he wouldn't listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had said. Even a miracle didn't change Pharaoh's mind. In fact, he turned around and went into his palace, and all the Egyptians dug holes near the Nile River to get drinking water, and they couldn't drink the water from the river. Some hard heart, soft heart. Someone who is stubborn has a hard heart. The person will not do what God says. Read the story in Exodus chapter 7, 14, 24. With your family, what do you think made Pharaoh stubborn? So the hot sun is like God's word. It melts in ice cube, but the marshmallow turns hard in the sun. The ice cube is like the heart of people who trust God, and the marshmallow is like the heart of Pharaoh. Remember to keep your heart soft, obey God's word. So I'm going to read the commentary now. All the way up to 5. So, reluctance of Moses, chapter 4, 1-9. Moses continued to doubt that the people would accept him as a spokesman of God. Maybe the delusionment of verse 2, 11, 15 had eaten deep into his soul. Therefore, God gave him 3 signs or miracles to confirm his divine commission. Number 1, his rod thrown on the ground became a serpent. Taken by the tail, the serpent became a rod again. Number 2, his hand placed in his bosom became leprous. The same hand placed in his bosom again became free of leprosy. And number 3, the water of the Nile poured out on the land became blood. These signs were designed to convince the people of Israel that Moses was sent by God. They spoke of God's power over Satan, the serpent, and sin pictured by the leprosy, and of the fact that Israel would be redeemed from both of these through the blood. Exodus chapter 4, verse 10-17. And Moses was still reluctant to obey the Lord, excusing himself because he was not eloquent, after reminding Moses that the Lord made man's mouth, and therefore could make him eloquent. God appointed Aaron, Moses' brother, to speak for him. Moses should have obeyed the Lord in simple dependence, knowing that his commands are his enablements. God never asked us to do anything without giving us the power to do it. Because Moses was not satisfied with God's best, he had to take God's second best, and not as having Aaron as his spokesman. Moses thought that Aaron would be a help, but he later proved to be a hindrance in leading the people to worship the golden calf in chapter Exodus 32. Exodus chapter 4, verse 18, verse 23, 40 years after fleeing to Midian, Moses returned to Egypt as God's command, and with Jericho's blessing, his wife and sons were Zipporah and Gershom and Eleazar. The staff in verse 2 becomes the rod of God. In verse 20, the Lord uses ordinary objects to do ordinary things, so that it can be plainly seen that the power is from God. The wonders which God commanded Moses to perform before Pharaoh were the plagues that followed, and God hardened Pharaoh's heart, but only after that despotic ruler and first hardening his own heart. Firstborn sometimes refers to the order in physical birth, but here it means a portion of honor normally held by the firstborn son, the inheritor of the birthright, and Pharaoh was forewarned that if he did not obey, God would slay his son. Exodus chapter 4, verse 24, verse 26. But before Moses could deliver the message, he had to learn obedience himself. He had failed to circumcise his own son, Gershom or Eleazar, possibly because of the birth's opposition. When God threatened to kill Moses, perhaps by serious illness, Zipporah angrily circumcised the son and secured her husband's release. She called him a husband or bridegroom, nabs, of blood. In this incident, plus Zipporah's apparent lack of faith in the Lord, may have been the very reason why Moses sent Zipporah home to her father with her 2 sons. Exodus chapter 4, verse 27, verse 31. Aaron came out to meet Moses as he returned to Egypt, and they both stood before the people of Israel and delivered the Lord's message and confirmed it with the 3 signs which the Lord had given. So the people believed and worshiped the Lord. Moses' confrontations with Pharaoh. Exodus chapter 5, verse 1 and verse 3:18. God had spoke to Moses to take the elders when he went before Pharaoh. In the meantime, the Lord had appointed Aaron as Moses' spokesman. So Aaron went with Moses in place of the elders, and the Lord's message was unequivocal: let my people go. Exodus chapter 5, verse 2, verse 14. When Moses and Aaron delivered their first ultimatum to Pharaoh, he accused them of distracting the people from their work. Also, he changed their workload by insisting that henceforth they would have to gather their own straw for making bricks, yet produce the same quota as before. Pharaoh was making an impossible situation for the Jews, reminding one of the Nazi treatment of the Jews in the concentration camps. They had to go throughout all the land of Egypt to gather stubble instead of straw. The Hebrew text indicates the contempt with which these repressed people were treated. Cole points out that the stubble is a poor substitute for straw, since it is rough and uneven. Exodus chapter 5, verse 15, verse 23. Until now, the straw had been provided for the Israelites. It was used to reinforce the bricks and to keep them from sticking to the forms in which they were made. And when the Jewish foremen were beaten, they protested to Pharaoh, but received no consideration. And then they blamed Moses and Aaron, and Moses in And Moses, in turn, blamed the Lord. A pushing from within the ranks of God's people is often harder to bear than persecution from without. Exodus chapter 6, verse 1, verse 2. Exodus chapter 6, verse 1, verse 12. The Lord graciously answered Moses' polluted speech first by assuring him that Pharaoh would let the Israelites go because he would be compelled by God's strong hand. And then he reminded Moses that he had revealed himself to the patriarchs as El Shaddai, or God Almighty, not prominently as Jehovah, New King James Version. Lord, the personal name of the covenant-keeping God. The thought here seems to be that he would now reveal himself as Lord in a new day, in a new way, and that is in the new power and deliverance his people. He had made a covenant and was about to fulfill it by freeing the Israelites from Egypt and bringing them into the promised land. And notice the 7 I wills in verse 6-8. The name Jehovah or Lord had been used before, but now it took on new significance. And notice 25 personal pronouns used by God in these verses and phrasing. What he had done, was doing, and would do. Moses seems to have missed the point, being still occupied with his own inadequacy. After further reassurance, he did obey the Lord. He did obey the word of the Lord. Chapter 7. Uncircumcised lips in verse 12 and 30 means faltering speech. Moses did not consider himself a great speaker. Exodus chapter 6, verse 13, verse 30. The genealogies in verse 14-25 are limited to Reuben, Simon, and Levi, the first 3 sons born to Jacob. The author did not want to give a complete genealogically, but only to trace the line to Moses and Aaron, and so he quickly passed over Reuben and Simon to come to the priestly tribe. Exodus chapter 7, verse 1, verse 5. At the close of the chapter 6, Moses wondered why the mighty Pharaoh would listen to such a poor speaker as he. The Lord's answer was that Moses stood before Pharaoh as a representative of God, and Moses would speak to Aaron, and Aaron would convey the message to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh would not heed, but God would deliver his people anyway. Exodus chapter 7, verse 6. Moses and Aaron were 80 and 83 years old, respectively, when their great ministry of deliverance began. Even in what today would be called old age, God can use men and women for his glory. The second confrontation. Exodus chapter 7, verse 7, verse 13. Pharaoh was forewarned of coming trouble when Aaron cast down his rod and it became a serpent. Pharaoh magicians and sorcerers were able to dissolve the miracle through demonic powers, as I told you earlier. It was demonic. We learn from 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 8, that the magicians of Egypt were Jannes and Jambres, and they resisted Moses by imitating him and Aaron. But Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. God hardened Pharaoh's heart, not arbitrarily, but in response to his stubbornness, and it was now time for the first plague. The first 9 plagues. The first plague that now turned to blood. Exodus chapter 7, verse 18. The Lord told Moses to have a personal confrontation with Pharaoh down by the riverside when his majesty went out to the water, and he was probably bathing in the sacred Nile. Moses was to warn the king that the fish would die, the river would stink, and become loathsome to the Egyptians after it was turned to blood by the rod in Moses' hand. Exodus chapter 7, verse 19, verse 25. Moses and Aaron did as God commanded, and they stretched out the rod over the waters of Egypt. The waters of the Nile and of the land of Egypt were turned to blood, the fish died, and the river stank. And the magicians duplicated this miracle with water found elsewhere than in the Nile, and this probably encouraged Pharaoh to resist Moses' demands to let the people go. And during the 7 days, when the Nile was polluted, the people obtained water by digging wells. So tomorrow we'll go to 8, 9, 10, 11. 12 pages. Done.